I didn't hear it from her. I heard it from Facebook, like everyone else. My phone buzzed twice, then lit up with a text from an old coworker I hadn't spoken to in years. Your wife's going viral. No context. No emoji. Just that. I was in the garage, sitting on a plastic stool, finishing a crossword puzzle and sipping microwaved coffee in a mug that said world's quietest husband. I opened the link. It was Erin. Hair curled, ring light haloing her like she'd ascended to online sainthood. Red wine in one hand, the other gesturing theatrically as she choked on a tear that never quite dropped. I want to be transparent with my audience. Paul and I have decided to end our marriage. This isn't about blame. It's about transformation. She titled the stream, Letting Go of What No Longer Aligns. Let me translate that. I'm dumping my husband like a worn-out brand deal. The comment section? A digital circus. You're so brave. This is what growth looks like. My ex never supported my dreams, either broken art. They didn't know the dreams she meant were filtered selfies, empty platitudes, and retreat brochures she printed at my office. They didn't know she still paid for groceries with my card. She paused for effect. She'd always loved pauses, and sipped her wine. I still love Paul. I always will. But sometimes, love isn't enough. Sometimes, the path forward means walking away. She signed off with a soft smile, put her hand to her heart, and whispered, Namaste. The stream ended. My marriage had apparently ended, too. I sat back, the plastic stool creaking under me, and stared at the workbench. 3 hammers, lined up neatly. A socket wrench she'd never learned how to use. The old blue toolbox her father gave me as a wedding gift, before he passed, before she started calling herself Erin Phoenix instead of Erin Lansing. She came home 3 hours later like she'd just returned from Pilates, tossed her keys into the bowl by the door, kicked off her white sneakers. I was still in the garage, still in the same chair, still watching that same video, paused at the frame where she said my name and smiled. She didn't flinch when she saw me, just arched an eyebrow and said, You saw it. I didn't move. I did. It needed to be done, she said, grabbing a sparkling water from the garage fridge. Authenticity is currency now. I'm launching the course next week, Brave New Endings. This was part of the rollout. I stared at her. Not because I was shocked. Not because I was heartbroken. No, that had all died months ago, back when she used our anniversary dinner to pitch her followers on her coaching package. I stared because I realized something vital in that moment. She thought she was the narrator. She thought I was just a footnote. And I knew that if she wanted an audience so badly, I'd give her the performance of a lifetime. That evening, she walked in humming, like she hadn't just tossed a grenade into our life and live-streamed the explosion. She breezed past me in her faux bohemian wrap, still wearing the makeup from her raw emotional moment, which, judging by the thumbnail of her video paused on the coffee table, she'd been rehearsing for days. I didn't say a word. She grabbed a kombucha from the fridge, sat cross-legged on the arm of the couch, because chairs were too rigid for spiritual alignment, and finally acknowledged me with a breezy, Hey. I pressed play. Her own voice filled the room. Paul and I are getting divorced. She glanced at the screen like it was the weather forecast. Yeah, that one's getting a ton of reach. Facebook boosted it, I think. I might cross-post to TikTok. You announced our divorce, I said flatly. She let out a soft laugh. Paul, come on. It's not like that. It's just narrative. She sipped. People connect to truth, to stories. This isn't about us. It's about transformation. Is it? Yes, she said, as if she were explaining metaphysics to a child. You don't understand branding. Vulnerability is value. If I want people to trust me as a coach, I need to be real. And this, she gestured vaguely between us, this is real. So it's not personal? I asked, already knowing the answer. She waved a hand like she was swatting a fly. Of course not. It's content. It's positioning. I looked at her. Really looked. The woman I'd married 15 years ago would have cried in the kitchen, probably with her hands in the sink. This version of her? She was waiting for likes to hit a threshold before feeling anything. You filing soon? I asked quietly. That got her attention. She blinked. Then that little smirk, the one she wore when she got a better table at a restaurant by saying she was press, curled onto her lips. I've already got the forms. Signed most of them. Just need you to cooperate. Clean break. If we move quickly, I can drop a conscious uncoupling post by next week. I nodded once, and that was when I knew something she didn't. She just handed me her playbook. Every word she'd said since hitting go live was on record. Every spin, every confession, every smug little attempt at turning our marriage into a monetized identity shift. I had it all. She thought this was her story. She hadn't read the second draft. The second her video ended, I didn't pour a drink. I didn't cry. I didn't scream into a pillow or rage text an old friend. I just picked up my phone, tapped twice, and made 2 calls. The first was to Jeremy Ortiz, an old colleague from a construction lawsuit years ago. He wasn't just an IT guy. He was the guy you called when someone thought deleting a post made it vanish. Jeremy had a quiet love for metadata and a nearly criminal passion for timestamps. I asked if he could mirror the live stream and archive everything: reactions, edits, deletes, IP history, you name it. His reply? You want the truth or the version the internet sees? I said both. The second call was to a name I'd scribbled on a business card years ago and tucked into the back of my sock drawer for reasons I couldn't admit even to myself at the time. Allison Cho. A woman with the demeanor of a tax auditor and the soul of a scalpel. She didn't do amicable. She did clean. Surgical. No leaks. She picked up on the third ring. Paul Lansing, she said flatly. If this is about the Rothstein case. It's not, I said. It's about a live stream. My wife announced our divorce to 23,000 strangers. There was a pause. Then, softly, link. I sent it. 10 minutes later, she called back, barely suppressing what sounded like glee. She put it all out there, Allison said. Abandonment without cause, emotional degradation, narrative manipulation for personal brand expansion. We're not going to court, Paul. We're going to theater. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. Because the more Aaron said online, the less I needed to speak. And by the time she realized she was handing me ammunition wrapped in hashtags, it would be far too late to shut her mouth. Allison got to work immediately. She drafted the first counter-filing before dinner. Jeremy sent me a drive with all of Aaron's digital history. Nothing deleted. Nothing lost. Not even the video she posted at 2 a.m. last year when she said, if Paul died in his sleep, I'd probably feel relieved. She deleted that clip within an hour. Jeremy had it in 3 formats with a transcript. None of this made me feel triumphant. Just still. After a decade of walking on eggshells while she spiraled from yoga instructor to pyramid scheme priestess, this was weightless. Because she wasn't holding the narrative anymore. She thought she was starring in a story of liberation. But every time she hit record, she just pulled tighter the rope. And me? I wasn't looking for revenge. I just wanted to never hear her voice again. But if I had to speak once, just once, to silence her forever, I'd do it live. I didn't stop her. Not once. Every post, every video, every overshare and offhand jab, she was digging her own grave in real time. And I just hit save. Her audience ballooned overnight. From 2,000 pity followers to 45,000 eager voyeurs devouring her journey. She became a staple on mid-tier wellness pages. Clips of her crying in parking lots, ranting about breaking generational cycles, and stepping into my divine self went semi-viral among the wineglass and ring light crowd. She posted from the passenger seat of a friend's Prius. Some men are terrified of a woman who evolves. But I refuse to shrink for comfort. I refuse to apologize for needing more than stability. I want soul. Her voice cracked just enough to sell the moment. She wiped one eye with a monogrammed sleeve. The comments were ruthless in my direction. Paul sounds emotionally unavailable. Deadweight husbands hate ambition. Stay strong, sis. He's just mad you outgrew him. She leaned in, hard. Posted screenshots of blurry journal pages. Shared old selfies with me cropped out. Ran a poll. Should I write a book about this? I didn't react. Not when she called me the ghost of comfort zones. Not when she told her audience I lacked spiritual vision. Not even when she implied I was emotionally abusive without ever using the word. I just took notes. And every Sunday night, I sent a package to Allison Cho. Neatly organized. Screenshots in chronological folders. File names tagged with date, time, engagement metrics. By week 4, I had 86 separate pieces of content categorized under public defamation, emotional exploitation, financial misrepresentation, admission of marital abandonment, commercialization of private assets. Yes, private assets. Turns out, when you monetize your story, and that story contains your husband's name, your shared house, and your marital timeline, you're not just venting. You're repackaging joint property for profit. Allison ate it up. Every one of these, she said, tapping her perfectly filed nails on the folder, is a brick in the foundation of your claim. You're not the villain in her narrative. You're the asset she's monetizing. I just nodded. I don't want to fight her, I said. I don't even want to ruin her. Allison gave me a look like she'd just been handed a scalpel. Paul, you're not ruining her. You're documenting her confession. I didn't want drama. I wanted closure. She could have had a clean break, dignified, fair. But she needed drama. She needed an audience. That's what she never understood. You can control the story or you can control the ending, but you don't get both. And me? I was building the ending, brick by brick, post by post. And the best part? She kept writing it for me. 3 weeks later, she came back from her branding mastermind retreat in Sedona wearing beads and confidence. Her lips were glossy, her eyes glassy, and her stride screamed someone who thought she'd already won. She handed me the divorce packet like it was an invitation to a wellness summit. The envelope was thick, custom printed. I half expected it to smell like lavender oil and bullshit. Just some formalities, she said, all syrup and sunshine. Nothing shocking. I sat down at the kitchen island, the one I built with my own hands the year we moved in, and pulled out the paperwork. 50% of the marital estate, including my pension, ongoing alimony, to maintain lifestyle consistency, full control of the guest house for transformational retreats, mutual non-disparagement clause, except for pre-existing content, my agreement not to touch her coaching brand or any income derived from it. She'd signed it already, dated, dotted her eyes with little hollow circles like a damn teenager. She stood behind me as I flipped through the pages, her fingers dancing anxiously on the back of a dining chair. If you agree quickly, I'll make sure you come out of this looking okay, she said softly, leaning in like we were co-conspirators instead of chess opponents. My audience needs a peaceful resolution, something mature, conscious. We don't have to turn this into a mess, Paul. She paused, then added, but if you drag your feet, I'll have to be honest about things. You know how people love truth. It wasn't a threat. It was a script she was reading from. In her mind, I was just another piece of content she needed to spin before launching her next ebook. I closed the packet, set it down gently, and looked up at her. Her face waited for compliance. I smiled. Of course, I said. Totally reasonable. She exhaled like I'd just agreed to host her chakra cleanse weekend. Then I picked up the envelope, folded it once down the center, and added, I'll respond live. Her expression twitched. What? I said I'll respond live. I repeated calmly, rising from the stool. Your audience deserves transparency, right? She blinked, not understanding yet. But something in her posture changed. The way her arms crossed tighter. The way her mouth thinned. And I knew, in that flicker of tension, she'd realized the game wasn't over. She thought I was being sarcastic. She thought maybe I'd post a bitter video. Maybe I'd record some pathetic rebuttal from my workshop while she racked up likes in candlelight. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the live stream wasn't her stage anymore. It was mine. And when I responded, I wouldn't be alone. She billed it as her biggest stream yet. A Sunday evening special. Golden hour lighting, soft piano in the background, crystals strategically placed behind her on the windowsill. The title glowed in pink font over a beige canvas. Divorce isn't the end, it's a rebirth. She teased it for days, snippets of her journaling, slow-motion videos of her walking barefoot in dewy grass. Captions like letting go of Paul was really just making room for me. By the time she went live, there were over 28,000 viewers. The comments rolled in like worship. She's glowing. This energy is divine sparkles. I can't wait to start my own transformation. She smiled into the camera like a benevolent prophet. Took a long sip from her branded mug. Breakthrough begins here. Then began. Hi, beautiful souls, she said, voice warm with faux humility. Tonight's stream is so important. I've gotten so many messages asking how I've stayed centered during the divorce. And I'll be honest, it hasn't been easy. But growth never is. The chat exploded. She went on, quoting therapists she'd misread. Reframing pain as progress. Laying bricks of narrative until she stood tall on a house of lies. Then, right as the view count ticked past 34,000, she smiled coyly and said, "Actually, I have a surprise for you all. Paul's agreed to join us for the last 5 minutes. We're modeling what a conscious, graceful uncoupling really looks like." The comment section went feral. OMG, is this real? We stand co-parenting kings and queens. She clicked something on her screen, and my face appeared. No golden hour. No crystals. No music. Just me, seated in a sterile office. White walls. Neutral lighting. A large manila envelope resting on the table. She blinked once, then again, like the camera betrayed her. I smiled. "Evening," I said. Hi, Paul. Thanks for being here. This is such a powerful moment for people to see two adults working through something hard with compassion and respect. The words stumbled out of her, reaching for the narrative reins again. But before she could settle in, the door behind me opened, and in walked Allison, hair tied back in a no-nonsense bun, gray power suit, a tablet in one hand. She took a seat beside me and faced the camera. Erin's mouth twitched. "Who's?" "My attorney," I said. Erin's face dropped a fraction, only visible if you knew her tells. The way her left nostril flared when she was cornered. The way her knuckles tightened around her mug. "Paul," she began, eyes darting from screen to camera, "this isn't what we agreed." "We didn't agree to anything," I interrupted calmly. "You said we'd model something graceful. I thought a clear legal resolution would be the most honest thing we could show your followers." Allison cleared her throat gently. "Mr. Lansing has authorized me to speak on his behalf," she said, her tone so measured it sounded like a closing bell in a courtroom. "Effective as of yesterday, all documents related to the countersuit have been signed, filed, and certified." The comment section froze. A moment of digital silence. Then it erupted. "Wait, what? Is this legit? What countersuit? OMG, is this like real?" Erin looked directly into the camera, still clinging to control. "Okay, let's just pause for a moment. This stream was meant to be healing, not informative," Allison said, arching a brow. I tilted my head, watching my soon-to-be ex-wife squirm in real time. "You wanted authenticity, Erin," I said softly. "I'm just here to help tell the full story." And for the first time in that whole marriage, she had no words. Only a blinking cursor. Live. In front of thousands. Allison leaned slightly toward the camera, her voice crisp and unhurried. The tone of someone used to depositions, not drama. "My name is Allison Cho. Mr. Lansing has authorized me to disclose terms of the finalized countersuit, effective as of yesterday, 3:47 p.m. Eastern." The chat slowed to a crawl, like it was holding its breath. "First," she said, tapping her tablet, "all public statements made by Ms. Erin Lansing, across social media platforms, paid webinars, and recorded interviews, have been entered into evidence, including, but not limited to, statements referring to Mr. Lansing as emotionally dead, limiting, and the metaphorical weight she had to shed to ascend." The chat blinked alive again. "Wait, what? Is she being sued? This is a train wreck I can't look away from." Erin opened her mouth to speak, but Allison kept going. "Second," she said, "per the joint asset audit conducted by independent financial examiners, the irrevocable transfer of property, including the main residence, vehicles, and retirement investments, has already been approved and filed. Mr. Lansing retains 100% ownership of the primary home and all adjoining structures." Erin's lips parted, her jaw slack. I watched her throat clench as she tried to find a foothold in her own collapsing narrative. Allison clicked once more. "Third," she continued, her voice as even as glass. "As Ms. Lansing's public persona and business identity were developed during the marriage, all associated revenue, sponsorships, course fees, product collaborations, affiliate partnerships, will now fall under shared asset review. This includes projected earnings from any post-divorce content derived from the marriage." That one landed hard. The mug slipped slightly from Erin's fingers. She steadied it with both hands now. No, hold on," she said, finally finding her voice. "This isn't what Paul, this is malicious. You're weaponizing. This is harassment. I raised one finger. The chat froze again. Even the emojis stopped. You streamed it, Aaron, I said evenly. Every confession, every monologue, every post where you called me a burden to transcend, you did that live. With hashtags, with sponsors. You monetized our marriage. She opened her mouth. I didn't flinch. I'm just making sure the ending's clear. The chat detonated. Paul for president. She fed around and found out. The digital applause came in waves. Laughing emojis. Shocked faces. A super chat that read, Bro brought his lawyer to a live stream skull. She tried to salvage it. Of course she did. She smiled shakily, hands trembling as she picked her next line. I think, maybe, we should just pause this and have a private conversation, Paul. You're hurt. I can see that. And I forgive you for ambushing me like this. I really do. The gall. The spin. But I didn't respond. Allison simply reached forward and muted our mic. The camera stayed on Aaron. She stared into the lens like she was waiting for a lifeline. But all she got was her own reflection. And the sound of an audience that wasn't clapping anymore. They were watching. Studying. Replaying. For once, the story wasn't hers. It never really was. She lunged. The mug slammed down, sloshing whatever overpriced herbal tea she was sipping across her keyboard. Her manicured hand darted off-screen, reaching for the controls. But in her panic, whether from rage, fear, or sheer disbelief, she knocked the phone off its stand. The camera tumbled sideways with a sickening clatter. Now all the viewers could see was a lopsided view of a corner of her office. One houseplant, 2 faux crystal healing lamps, and a partial shot of her leg as she scrambled to fix the angle. But the audio? The audio was still rolling. You ambushed me. You monster, she shrieked, her voice cracked and high-pitched, like a singer hitting the wrong octave. This was supposed to be inspirational. You're ruining everything. In the background, her moderator's voice. Do you want me to cut the feed? Yes. End it. End it. But the delay. Oh, the delay was just enough. Because in that frozen 30 seconds, the comment section morphed into something feral and historic. Wait, is this real? She's getting cooked in real time. Girl, you just got legally served live skull. Imagine trying to soft launch your divorce and getting hit with property transfer docs on your own stream. Paul won without opening his mouth, OMG. Someone even sent a super chat that read, This is the most raw healing content I've ever seen. Bless you both. Money with wings. A full minute passed before she managed to yank the phone back into her hands. Her face, now too close to the lens, was flushed and trembling. Her voice cracked again as she screamed at her moderator. Take it down now. And still audio. Still streaming. Still tens of thousands watching. It was Allison who finally ended it. She turned to me and whispered, It's archived. I nodded. Calm. Silent. The way I'd always been. I leaned slightly toward the camera. Just enough. Met her gaze through the lens. Not angry. Not smug. Just finished. Then I reached over and ended the call. No grand speech. No last jab. Just a click. And the screen went black. She tried to salvage it. I know she did. Her moderators deleted the comments. The video was pulled within minutes. A teary apology went up an hour later, some half-sobbed nonsense about not feeling safe and being blindsided by patriarchal aggression. But it was too late. Clips were everywhere. People had recorded it, timestamped it, clipped it into montages. Reddit threads. Reaction videos. One TikTok had over 1 million views by midnight with the caption, When your husband lets you narrate the divorce, and then drops the finale. I didn't need to trend. I didn't need revenge porn or petty payback. I needed out. And thanks to her live stream, I walked out holding everything, while she stared into a blank camera, screaming at a silence she created. The fallout was swift, unsympathetic, and most importantly, permanent. The full stream didn't survive. Aaron tried to scrub it within hours, even hired some PR intern to file takedowns on re-uploads, citing harassment and unauthorized distribution of traumatic content. But it was too late. The internet doesn't forget, especially when it smells blood. The headline that first broke containment was from a reaction channel that usually reviewed dating fails. Wife gets schooled on her own live stream. Divorce lawyer drops bomb mid-broadcast. Within 48 hours, there were full-blown YouTube breakdowns. TikTok drama analysts dissected it frame by frame. Reddit lit up with threads titled, "How Not to Monetize Your Divorce." Queen of Wellness gets reality checked. She tried to turn her marriage into a business. Her husband treated the divorce like one. But what really gutted her wasn't the views. It was the tone shift. The followers she once called her tribe, the same ones who flooded her with purple hearts and spiritual affirmations, started asking questions. One comment, "Why didn't you read the paperwork before the live stream?" Another, "Wait, you announced your divorce without telling your husband?" And then the worst one, the one I screenshotted before it got deleted. Honestly, Paul sounds like the stable one. The sponsors were next. A tea brand pulled her discount code by Monday. A meditation app ghosted her completely. This spiritual retreat in Maui removed her from their speaker lineup and issued a quiet refund to attendees who had prepaid for her breakout session, reclaiming the divine feminine through grief. The video had burned the bridge, the boats, and the island. So Erin did what she always did when cornered. She cried on camera. She filmed herself in the same softly lit room, hair undone, makeup smeared just enough to look spontaneous. "I trusted Paul to handle this like an adult," she sniffled, staring directly into the lens like she was auditioning for forgiveness. "I created that live stream as a safe space. He turned it into a weapon. That wasn't healing. That was humiliation." She paused dramatically. "I hope one day he realizes what he did." And yet, something was off this time. The comments weren't flooded with empathy. They were colder, shorter, less enchanted. "I hope you realize what you did. You tried to turn your divorce into a content arc. You played with fire and filmed it." Her followers didn't unfollow all at once, but the engagement slowed. The DMs dried up. A week later, she posted a Reclaiming Stillness journal prompt, 3 likes. Me? I didn't post anything. Not a note. Not a photo. I packed up, transferred my accounts, and moved into a cabin 2 states away. No Wi-Fi. Just the woods, a fireplace, and silence that wasn't forced. It was chosen. I filed my retirement paperwork early, took the payout, rolled it clean. No penalties. No surprises. My name was nowhere on her next video, or the one after that. Eventually, she stopped mentioning me at all, because she finally realized something. You can't go viral off a man who doesn't exist online anymore. You can't build a platform from ashes you didn't earn, and you sure as hell can't reclaim the narrative. When you handed over the script, it came weeks later. A message. No subject line. Just her name in the inbox, still saved as Erin, home, from a life that didn't exist anymore. The body read, "I lost everything. Are you happy?" No punctuation. No emojis. Just raw, cornered desperation. I didn't answer. What was there to say? She lost followers, sponsors, friends who realized too late they'd been bit players in a self-authored delusion. Her coaching empire collapsed under the weight of NDAs and back taxes. Even her podcast, Evolve or Evaporate, hadn't released a new episode since the live stream. Episode 17 was supposed to be Rebuilding After Breakdown. It never aired. But still, I didn't reply. Allison did. She had the letter sent by certified mail. Not email. Not text. Paper. So Erin would have to sign for it, touch it, hold it, read it line by line in her trembling, newly quiet home. Inside were 4 typed pages outlining the final clause of the settlement. A clause she hadn't really paid attention to during her meltdown phase, too busy chasing pity likes to read the fine print. As part of the agreed-upon division of shared intellectual assets, Ms. Lansing's ongoing revenue derived from public content, written, video, or audio, must be transparently disclosed and submitted for quarterly audit by the firm representing Mr. Lansing for a period of no less than 10 years. 10 years. Not to punish. To protect. I wasn't taking a dime. That was never the point. But every book deal, every transformation course, every future monetized trauma dump she tried to spin from our marriage, she'd have to file. Itemize. Disclose. She screamed when she read it. Neighbors would later say they thought someone had died. And in a way, someone had. Because what died wasn't just a persona or a brand. It was the illusion. The illusion that she could rewrite me, that she could turn her betrayal into a redemption arc and sell it to strangers with PayPal links. She made it public. Every fight, every confession, every insult dressed as truth was done in front of an audience she thought she could control. And in doing so, she handed me the one thing I never had during our marriage, the spotlight. But I didn't use it to shout. I used it to exit. She wanted content. I gave her closure. And now? There's no applause. No stream. No dramatic candlelit wrap-up monologue. Just Erin, sitting in a quiet house, watching her engagement tank and her influence dissolve. No echo. No stage. Just silence. The same silence I lived in. Until she dragged me into the light. And found out too late. I never needed revenge. I just needed finality. And she broadcasted the whole damn thing for me.
The phone rang in the middle of the night. The sharp sound jolted me out of a deep sleep, and the first thing I saw was the bright glow of Julia's phone on her nightstand. The clock read 2:13 when she snatched it up and slipped out of bed without a word. She left the bedroom door slightly ajar. I lay there in the dark, trying to make sense of what was happening. Who calls at this hour? The last time she rushed out of the bedroom like that, it was because of Lily. Our daughter had woken up crying. But tonight, she was peacefully asleep, her breath soft and steady in her crib. Julia was in the living room now, thinking I couldn't hear her. But her voice, it was quiet, almost a whisper, but I caught enough to hear her say, "I'll take care of it, don't worry. No, not tonight. Just not tonight. I can't. He's here." A cold shiver ran down my spine. He's here? Me? Who was she even talking about? I froze, straining to hear more as her footsteps padded back toward the bedroom. My brain refused to piece it together. She came back into the room like nothing had happened, slipped under the covers and lay there as if she hadn't even noticed me. I lay there, listening to her breathe, slow, steady, but I couldn't sleep. In the dark, she seemed so calm, so distant. The next morning, she acted like the 2 a.m. call had never happened, laughing, making breakfast, playing with Lily. But I couldn't shake the memory of her voice. "I'll take care of it. He's here." Who the hell was she talking to? What the hell did that mean? I started noticing strange things. Subtle, but once you catch on to them, they eat away at you. She'd become more closed off, though it wasn't obvious at first. Quick, clipped answers to questions, sometimes staring at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Once a week she'd disappear after work, saying she was meeting up with friends. But now I paid attention. I asked her casually one day, "Who were you talking to that night?" She laughed, a bit too quickly. "You're joking, right? It was Melissa." She couldn't sleep. You know how she is with her insomnia. Weird that you even remember that. Melissa, her convenient cover story. But her laugh was so forced it made something twist inside me. I couldn't ignore the red flags anymore. The ones that were popping up all around us. Something was wrong, and whatever it was slowly eating me alive. A few days after that call, I found something I never wanted to find. But that was only the beginning of the nightmare I'd just stumbled into. It was 3 days after the 2 a.m. call when I found the envelope. It wasn't hidden in some secret drawer or tucked under a floorboard like in the movies. No, it was just casually tossed on the kitchen counter, as if it were any other piece of mail. And maybe it would have gone unnoticed if it hadn't been for the way Julia glanced at it. Just a flicker of her eyes, but enough to set off alarm bells in my head. She was feeding Lily at the table, her back turned to me. I picked up the envelope and felt its weight. A bit heavier than a typical letter. No return address. Just our last name, Harris, scribbled across the front in bold, black ink. "What's this?" I asked, holding it up. Julia didn't even look back. Her voice was casual, but there was something too controlled about it. Probably some insurance paperwork. Junk mail. I stared at the envelope. Insurance paperwork? It didn't feel like that. Felt like something else. Something important. Before I could ask more, Lily started fussing, and Julia used that distraction to end the conversation. But I knew something was off. The next morning, while Julia was still asleep, I quietly made my way to the kitchen and grabbed the envelope. My hands shook as I tore it open. Inside was a piece of paper. Nothing fancy, just standard printer paper. But it was what was printed on it that made my stomach drop. DNA results. My heart started pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Why would there be DNA results? I hadn't ordered one, and Julia never mentioned anything about it. I scanned the document, my eyes jumping to the key parts, the percentages, the names. Child, Lily Harris. Mother, Julia Harris. Potential father, Ronald Harris. 99.9% probability. Ronald Harris. My dad. I dropped the paper as if it had burned me. No, there's no way. No way in hell. This had to be some kind of mistake. Some sick joke. But the words on the paper didn't change no matter how many times I looked at them. My legs gave out, and I sat on the cold kitchen floor, staring at the document in disbelief. My father, my own father, was Lily's biological dad? I felt like I couldn't breathe. My mind started spinning, trying to make sense of what the hell I was looking at. How long had this been going on? Why would my dad? No, I couldn't even form the thought. It didn't make any sense. But the more I thought about it, the more pieces started falling into place. The constant visits from my dad. Julia's overly friendly attitude toward him. The weird tension I'd been feeling between them. The way he always insisted on spending time with Lily, more than a typical grandparent ever would. The laughter in the kitchen when they thought I wasn't watching. The late night calls. I'll take care of it. He's here. Holy sh*T. The truth was staring me right in the face this whole time, and I hadn't seen it. They'd been playing me like a fool. I didn't realize I was gripping the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to smash something, throw the envelope into the fire, tear the entire kitchen apart. But instead, I stood there, frozen in shock, unable to process the reality of what I just discovered. How was I supposed to confront this? How do you even start that conversation? Hey, Julia, I found a DNA test, and surprise, my dad's the father of our child. What the hell kind of world was I living in? I felt sick. My whole body trembled as I stumbled back into the bedroom. Julia was still asleep, completely unaware that her dirty little secret had just exploded in my face. I stared at her for a long time, watching her chest rise and fall in peaceful sleep, and for the first time in years, I felt like I didn't know the person lying next to me. But I couldn't confront her yet. Not like this. I needed to think, to plan. This wasn't something I could rush into, not without knowing exactly what I was going to do next. Because now everything was different, and someone was going to pay for this. I didn't confront Julia right away. Couldn't. Not until I had some idea of what I was going to do. The rage was still there, bubbling just beneath the surface. But I knew that if I went off without a plan, it'd all blow up in my face. I started paying more attention to the details, watching them both like a hawk. I couldn't help it. Every glance Julia threw at my dad, every text message she quickly swiped away, every suspicious laugh when they thought I wasn't around. It was all adding up, piece by piece, to something ugly, something much worse than I could have ever imagined. They were so good at keeping the act up, so casual, so damn normal around me. If I hadn't found that DNA test, I probably never would have figured it out. But now that I knew, every second they spent together felt like a knife twisting deeper into my gut. And my dad, how the hell could he? My own father. Every time I saw him now, I had to fight the urge to punch his face in. He'd still stop by, smiling like he always did, pretending to be the perfect grandfather. But every smile looked fake now, like a mask he was wearing to hide the disgusting truth. I started avoiding them both. Not in an obvious way, more like retreating into myself, staying quiet, watching from a distance. Every interaction felt like a sick game I was being forced to play, waiting for the right moment to flip the board and smash everything to pieces. I wanted them to think I didn't know, that I was still clueless. That was the only way I could stay one step ahead. But I had to get more proof. The DNA test was enough for me, but I wanted something else. Something to back it up, to confront them with so they couldn't weasel their way out of it. I installed a small camera in the living room when Julia was out. It was hidden well, tucked into the bookshelf, facing the couch where they usually sat when my dad came over. I felt sick to my stomach doing it, but at this point, I needed to know just how deep this betrayal went. The camera was rolling for 2 weeks, and I barely slept during that time. Every time I saw them together, I was itching to check the footage, but I forced myself to wait, to collect as much as possible. It was hell, living in the same house as Julia, pretending like everything was fine. And my dad, the bastard, kept dropping by like nothing was wrong, laughing with my wife, holding my daughter. Finally, one afternoon when I couldn't take it any longer, I locked myself in the home office and reviewed the footage. My hands were trembling as I clicked through the files, half hoping I'd find nothing, half terrified of what I might see. The first few days were uneventful. They talked, laughed, and played with Lily. Normal stuff, but on the 5th day I caught it. A small moment, but it was enough. They were sitting on the couch, watching something on TV, and Julia leaned into my dad's shoulder. Too comfortable, too familiar. He put his arm around her. Then they exchanged a look that sent chills down my spine. It wasn't just friendly. It was intimate. That wasn't the worst part. A few minutes later, Julia excused herself to go upstairs and check on Lily. My dad stood up, and as he walked past the camera, I heard him mutter under his breath, "She's taking too long. We need to figure this out before he catches on." My breath caught in my throat. They were planning something. This wasn't just an affair. They were plotting. My pulse pounded in my ears, my body going cold as realization hit me. It wasn't enough that they'd betrayed me. They were actively working together behind my back. I went through more footage and the patterns started emerging. They never said too much in front of Lily, but they'd talk in whispers when they thought I wasn't around. They thought they were being careful. They thought I wouldn't notice. I noticed. The next time my dad came over, I almost couldn't keep it together. He walked in, smiling like he always did, patting me on the back as if nothing had changed. I could barely look at him without my fists clenching. I knew, and soon so would they. Julia had no idea. She continued on with her little charade, thinking I was just some clueless idiot. But every smile she gave me felt like a slap in the face, every touch like a lie. She thought she had me fooled, but the truth was, I was done being fooled. I didn't know exactly what they were planning, but I was going to find out. And when I did, I wasn't just going to confront them, I was going to burn everything down. The day came faster than I expected. There was no perfect moment. I thought I'd need more time to plan, to gather every last bit of evidence. But when I saw Julia send that text, another damn text, right before she left the house to run errands, I knew the moment had arrived. She was going to meet him. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was instinct. Every nerve in my body screamed at me that today was the day they'd slip up. I'd spent weeks watching them dance around me, pretending everything was fine. But I'd been patient. I'd been quiet. And now it was my turn to control the game. I had a plan, simple but effective. When she left, I grabbed my phone and the spare car keys. I followed her, keeping my distance as she drove across town. She didn't go to any store or run any errands. I wasn't surprised. She turned into a small, out-of-the-way motel, one of those sleazy ones with flickering neon signs where no one asks questions. My hands tightened around the steering wheel, my knuckles white. So this was where they met. I felt sick, but at the same time, a strange calm washed over me. I've been waiting for this. Now it was time to act. I parked far enough away that she wouldn't see me. She was already heading inside, glancing around like a criminal who knew she was being watched but didn't know by whom. I waited a few minutes, my heart pounding in my chest, and then I got out of the car. I walked toward the entrance, trying to keep my steps steady, my breathing slow. My mind was racing, but I knew exactly what I needed to do. I walked up to the front desk, my face neutral, acting as if I belonged there. The clerk barely looked up from his phone. "How can I help you?" he asked lazily. "I'm here for room 203, I said, my voice steady despite the fire raging inside me. I gave him a name, my dad's name. He didn't even blink. He slid the key across the counter, and I snatched it up, trying to ignore the bile rising in my throat. Room 203. I climbed the stairs slowly, feeling every heartbeat like a ticking bomb in my chest. When I reached the door, I could hear faint voices inside, muffled laughter. Their voices. I pressed my ear against the door, my blood boiling as I heard my father's deep voice saying something I couldn't quite make out. Enough. No more waiting. No more playing the fool. I shoved the key into the lock, my hands shaking, and turned it. The door swung open, and there they were. They were both sitting on the bed, too close, laughing about something only they found funny. Julia's hand was resting on his knee. His knee. My father's knee. The sight of them together, in this cheap, disgusting motel room, was enough to make me want to tear the place apart. They both froze when they saw me, their smiles fading instantly. The color drained from Julia's face, and my father. He didn't even try to hide his shock. For a moment, there was complete silence. I stepped into the room, closing the door behind me with a calmness I didn't feel. The tension was thick, suffocating. My voice was steady, too steady, as I finally broke the silence. So, how long has this been going on? Neither of them answered. Julia opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Her eyes darted to my father, silently begging him to say something, to take control. But he was just as speechless, his hands trembling slightly. I could see the panic in his eyes. He had no idea how to handle this. Neither of them did. Good. They deserved to squirm. I took a step closer, my gaze burning through both of them. I said, "How long?" My voice was louder this time, sharp, cutting through the air like a knife. Julia swallowed hard, her lips trembling. It's not what you think," she finally stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. I laughed, a bitter, humorless laugh. "Not what I think. Really? So you weren't sneaking around behind my back with my father? You weren't lying to me this whole time, making me believe I was crazy while you two." I couldn't even finish the sentence. The rage inside me was blinding. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make them feel even a fraction of the pain they'd caused me. My dad finally spoke, his voice shaking. "Son, we didn't mean for this to happen. It just..." I cut him off, my voice ice cold. Don't you dare call me son. You lost that right the moment you decided to destroy everything I had." He flinched, his eyes wide with shock. Julia was crying now, but I couldn't feel anything for her. No pity, no sympathy, just cold, burning hatred. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the DNA test results, throwing them on the bed between them. "You two think I'm stupid? That I wouldn't figure it out? Lily, she's your daughter." I pointed at my father, my voice shaking with anger. "You're her father." Julia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My father's face turned pale as he stared down at the papers, the truth staring him back in the face. There was no more hiding, no more lying. It was all out in the open now. For a moment, no one moved, no one spoke. And then, in a voice colder than I ever thought I was capable of, I said, "You're both dead to me. But don't worry, you won't get away with this. You have no idea what's coming." I turned and walked out of the room, leaving them behind in stunned silence. The door slammed shut behind me with a satisfying thud. They thought they could break me. They thought they could betray me and walk away unscathed. But they were wrong. I wasn't done with them yet. I drove home in a haze, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly I thought I might rip it off. But my mind was clear, crystal clear. The rage was still there, boiling just beneath the surface. But it wasn't wild anymore. It wasn't the kind of anger that makes you want to punch walls or scream into the void. No, this was different. This was ice cold, calculated. When I left that motel room, I knew that blowing up in front of them wouldn't be enough. I didn't want a screaming match, didn't want to give them the satisfaction of thinking they could explain themselves or plead for forgiveness. No, they weren't getting away with this that easily. My father, my wife, and that lie they called Lily. They had no idea what I had planned. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I knew exactly what my next move would be. I was going to dismantle their lives piece by piece, quietly, slowly, like pulling the wings off a fly. They'd feel every single inch of pain they caused me. Every betrayal would come back to haunt them. And the best part? They wouldn't see it coming. I stepped into the house, calm on the outside but seething on the inside. Julia wasn't home yet, of course. She probably stayed back with my father, figuring out how to handle the nuclear bomb I just dropped on their cozy little affair. Good. Let them squirm. I walked into the living room and stared at the family photos on the wall. There was one of us from just last year, me, Julia, Lily, and my dad. All smiles. Perfect, happy family. My stomach churned just looking at it, but I didn't take it down. Not yet. No, that picture would stay exactly where it was. A reminder of what they thought they had destroyed. What they didn't realize was that I still had the power here. I went upstairs to the office, shut the door behind me, and sat down at my desk. I opened my laptop, my fingers hovering over the keyboard for a moment before I started typing. The first email went to my lawyer. Subject: divorce. Message: we need to talk. I want everything set in motion immediately. Then came the rest of the plan. I began setting up everything I'd need to ensure that when this was all over, Julia wouldn't have a penny to her name. Every financial asset we had together was going to be locked down, frozen, and transferred. Every bit of trust I'd put into her, gone. I wasn't just ending our marriage. I was erasing her from my life, from our accounts, from everything. I worked through the night, gathering everything. Bank statements, property deeds, legal documents. Julia had no idea that legally I had the upper hand. When we bought the house, I made sure it was in my name. The car? In my name. All of our joint accounts? I had the passwords, the access, the keys to everything. And Lily. Oh, Lily. She wasn't mine, at least not biologically, but she was going to stay my daughter. I had no intention of walking away from that little girl. I wasn't going to let my wife or my father take her away from me. I'd raise her as my own, and they wouldn't get a say in it. They lost that right the moment they betrayed me. I filed for emergency custody of Lily before the sun even rose. I attached the DNA results, laying out the facts. I was her legal father, the one who had provided for her, loved her, and taken care of her since the day she was born. And her biological father? A man who had betrayed his own son and had no business being involved in her life. No court in their right mind would let Julia, or especially him, walk away with my daughter. By the time I finished, the morning light was creeping through the window. I sat back, taking a deep breath, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was something close to it. The pieces were falling into place. My next move was clear, and it was going to devastate them. At around 9 a.m., I heard the front door open. Julia was home. I closed the laptop slowly and headed downstairs. She was standing in the foyer, pale and nervous, her eyes darting toward me like she expected me to explode. I didn't. I just stood there, staring at her with a calm she couldn't understand. "We need to talk," she said, her voice shaky. "I can explain. I never wanted this to happen. You have to believe me. I love you. It's just... Stop." I cut her off, my voice cold, but calm. "You don't need to explain anything. I already know everything." Her eyes widened, and she stepped forward, like she was going to reach for me. I backed away. "No, you don't get to touch me anymore." My words were like ice, and she froze in place. "Here's what's going to happen, Julia. I'm filing for divorce. You're leaving this house. Today. You don't get to take anything with you. No money, no car, nothing. I've already frozen our accounts, transferred the property to my name. You'll have nothing. And Lily? She's staying with me. You'll be lucky if you ever see her again." Julia's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Tears welled up in her eyes as she shook her head. "Please, you can't. I didn't mean. We can work this out, please." I laughed. A cold, humorless sound. "Work this out? Julia, you've been sleeping with my father. There's nothing left to work out. You both destroyed everything. But I'll be damned if I let you walk away with anything after what you've done." Her knees buckled, and she sank to the floor, sobbing. But I didn't feel anything. No sympathy, no pity, not anymore. I turned and walked away, leaving her there in the foyer, crying over the wreckage she had caused. I didn't stop, didn't look back. I had set my plan in motion, and now all that was left was to watch it unfold. Julia and my father thought they had broken me, but what they didn't realize was that they had created someone far more dangerous. After leaving Julia crumpled on the floor, I didn't stop. Couldn't. It wasn't enough yet. She wasn't broken the way she needed to be. My father wasn't suffering like he should. No, this was just the beginning. The wrecking ball had barely started to swing, and I wasn't going to stop until both of them felt every pound of its weight. I went upstairs and grabbed my keys, passing Lily's room as I did. She was napping, her small body curled up under the blankets, completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. I stood there for a moment, staring at her through the cracked door. She wasn't mine, not really, but she'd always be mine in my heart. I wouldn't let them take her from me, no matter what. Julia had to know that this was just the start. She thought a few tears and some begging would make me back down? No chance. I was just getting warmed up. I left the house without saying another word. Let her sit there. Let her drown in the reality that was now suffocating her. I had somewhere else to be. I arrived at my father's office around lunchtime. He was still running the family business, though he'd taken a back seat in recent years, supposedly letting me prepare to take over. That was the plan, at least before I found out that while he was mentoring me, he was also sneaking into my wife's bed. Now, all I wanted was to burn his legacy to the ground, just like he'd done to my life. I walked into the office without an appointment. His secretary tried to stop me. Some panicked excuse about him being in a meeting, but I brushed past her, ignoring her protests. I knew exactly where he was. In the same plush corner office where he'd spent years pretending to be the perfect family man. When I burst through the door, he was sitting behind his desk, laughing on the phone. But the moment he saw me, the smile froze on his face. He muttered something to the person on the other end and quickly hung up. His eyes locked on mine. "What the hell are you doing here?" His voice was sharp, but I could hear the tremor beneath it. He was rattled, shaken by what had happened earlier at the motel. He had no idea what was coming next. I slammed the door behind me, locking it without breaking eye contact. I took my time walking to his desk, letting the tension stretch between us, watching him shift uncomfortably in his chair. "We're going to talk," I said, my voice low, controlled. "And you're going to listen." He started to speak, but I held up a hand, silencing him. "No excuses. No lies. I've already heard it all, seen it all." I leaned forward, planting my hands on his desk, leaning in close enough to see the sweat forming on his brow. "I know about everything." For a second, he didn't respond, just stared at me, his eyes wide. Then, slowly, he leaned back in his chair, a heavy sigh escaping his lips. "Look, I never meant for this to happen," he started, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "It got out of control, okay? But I didn't plan this." "Julia," I slammed my hand down on the desk, cutting him off. "Don't. You're not going to blame her for this. Don't even try." His eyes flickered, and for a moment, I thought I saw fear. Good. He should be afraid. "You think you can just walk into my life, destroy everything, and then what? Say sorry? Expect me to forgive you? Move on? Let you keep everything you've built?" I leaned in closer, my voice dripping with contempt. "You ruined my marriage. You took everything from me. So now, I'm going to take everything from you." He paled at that. His composure slipped just for a second, but it was enough. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was cold, cruel, calculated. "I'm not just divorcing Julia. I'm going after you. The business, the assets, everything. I'm going to expose this entire affair, drag your name through the mud, and make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. I'm going to make sure the board of directors hears every disgusting detail. You think they'll keep you on after that? You think you'll walk away from this unscathed?" His face drained of color. For the first time, real panic flickered in his eyes. "You wouldn't." "Oh, I would." I leaned back, crossing my arms, savoring the moment. "You see, you taught me everything I know about business. But what you didn't realize is that I've learned how to use it against you. I've got the legal documents ready. I've already filed for divorce, and I'm taking Julia down with me. But you're going to lose everything too. The house, the company, your reputation. You'll be left with nothing." His hands started to shake. For a man who had always been in control, who always prided himself on being untouchable, this was his worst nightmare. And I was enjoying every second of watching him unravel. We can work this out," he stammered, desperation creeping into his voice. "There's no need to drag this into the public eye. We can settle this privately. I'll give you a bigger stake in the company. We can work something out." I shook my head, laughing softly. "You still don't get it, do you? I don't want your damn company. I don't want your money. I want you to suffer. I want you to feel what it's like to have everything ripped away from you, just like you did to me." For a moment, he was speechless. Then, in a voice that was barely above a whisper, he said, "She's my daughter, you know?" My heart stopped. Took me a second to process what he'd just said. And when I did, my vision went red. "What?" My voice was deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. He swallowed hard, glancing at the door as if he was considering running. "Lily, she's my daughter. You can't take her away from me. You don't have any right. I'm her biological father." I saw nothing but red. My whole body trembled as I fought the urge to leap across the desk and tear him apart with my bare hands. But I didn't. I stayed rooted to the spot, my fists clenched so tight I could feel my nails digging into my palms. "You gave up that right the moment you decided to betray me?" I said, my voice shaking with barely contained fury. "You might be her biological father, but I'm her real father, and I'm going to make sure you never see her again." I turned and walked out of his office, my heart pounding, my vision blurred with rage. He shouted something after me, but I didn't hear it. I didn't care. All I knew was that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I left my father's office, rage burning through me like wildfire, but the satisfaction of watching him squirm wasn't enough. Not yet. I thought I could hold it together, keep everything cold and calculated. But the moment he said those words, "She's my daughter," it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me again. I was done with conversations, done with quiet moves. This needed to end, and it needed to end now. I drove back home, my mind buzzing, thinking of every move I had left. The divorce, the financial ruin I was lining up for both of them. Those were just the surface of what I wanted. But now there was more. Lily was at the heart of it all, and they both thought they could take her from me? They had no idea the storm that was about to hit them. When I walked into the house, Julia was waiting. She looked wrecked, pale, her eyes red from crying, but there was something else in her expression. Fear. Not just fear of losing everything, but something deeper, like she knew something that I didn't. She stood in the kitchen, biting her lip nervously as I entered. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaky but soft, almost pleading. I didn't even look at her as I went to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and stood there, ignoring her question. She was trying to get my attention, trying to manipulate the situation like she always did. Not this time. "Please, just listen to me. I know I've made horrible mistakes, but we need to talk about Lily." Her voice cracked as she said our daughter's name. Our daughter, I reminded myself, not his, but her words, "We need to talk about Lily," sent an icy chill down my spine. I spun around, my eyes narrowing on her. What about her? My voice was calm, too calm, but my mind was racing. I didn't trust anything coming out of her mouth now. Julia swallowed hard, stepping closer, but she was careful, like she was approaching a wild animal. There's something you don't know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something I've been keeping from you." My pulse quickened. I was so sick of secrets, so sick of this game. "What could possibly be left to say, Julia?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You already lied about everything else. What's one more?" She took a deep breath, her hands shaking. "The DNA test. The one you found. It's not the full story." I froze. "Not the full story." She looked down at the floor, her eyes filling with tears again, but this time they felt different. Not the manipulative tears she used before. These were real, desperate. Ron, he made me take the test, she whispered. I didn't want to. I didn't want to know. But he insisted. He pushed me to do it because he thought he might be the father. She stopped, her voice cracking. But he's not. My brain stuttered. What the hell did she just say? What are you talking about? I demanded, stepping toward her. My heart was pounding in my chest. She looked at me, her eyes wide and terrified. Ron isn't Lily's father, she said, her voice trembling. I let him think that, but the truth is the test came back negative. Ron's not the father. I stared at her, the words not sinking in at first. They didn't make sense. I'd seen the results. 99.9% probability. They were staring right at me. She was lying. She had to be. This was just another sick twist in her game. But something in her eyes told me otherwise. Her face, pale and drained of all color, told me she was telling the truth, or at least part of it. Then why did the test say otherwise? I asked, my voice sharp. She wiped a tear from her cheek and looked down at the floor again. Ron, he had a second test made. He sent you the false one. He thought it'd be easier if you believed it was him. Rather than... My blood ran cold. Rather than who? Julia let out a shaky breath, tears falling freely now. Rather than someone else. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. Someone you know. Someone close. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, my mind racing with 1,000 different possibilities. Someone else? Who? Who, Julia? I demanded, my voice rising. Who the hell is it? She shook her head, like she was ashamed of what she was about to say. Then, she whispered 2 words that shattered everything. Your brother. I froze. Time stopped. Everything around me seemed to tilt sideways, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. My brother? The one who lived halfway across the country. The one I barely saw anymore? How was this even possible? How long had this been going on? Felt like the walls were closing in. Like every bit of oxygen in the room had been sucked out. I backed away from Julia, my mind spinning, trying to make sense of this new twist in the nightmare that had become my life. No, I whispered, more to myself than to her. No, this can't be real. But her silence told me everything I needed to know. It was real. All of it. The DNA test, the lies, the betrayal. It wasn't just my father. It was my brother too. They'd both been complicit in this. Both had ripped my life apart without a second thought. Julia broke down into sobs, her hands covering her face as she crumpled to the floor again, just like she had earlier. I'm so sorry, she cried. I never meant for it to happen this way. I never wanted to hurt you like this. But Ron, he thought it'd be better if you hated him instead of knowing the truth. He thought it would be easier for you. Easier? They thought letting me believe my father was Lily's father would be easier than the truth? They thought this lie, this disgusting web they'd spun, was somehow better than reality? My mind was reeling, my heart racing so fast I thought it might explode. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't stand the sight of her, the sound of her sobs, the pathetic excuses that poured from her lips. I turned and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind me, the sound echoing in my ears. My brother, my own brother. This betrayal wasn't just within my marriage. It was inside my bloodline, coursing through my veins. I walked out into the driveway, my body trembling with rage. My fists clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white. I couldn't process it. It was too much to handle, too much to bear. My father had lied to protect my brother. My wife had lied to protect herself. And now, I was standing in the wreckage of a life I didn't even recognize anymore. But one thing was clear. This wasn't over. I drove without thinking, the roar of the engine and the pounding in my head drowning out everything else. My brother. My brother. The words played over and over in my mind, like a sick loop I couldn't escape from. How had I missed it? He lived states away. I barely saw him once, maybe twice a year at family holidays. He was always charming, always the golden child growing up. And me? I was the one who stuck around, who did everything right. And still, somehow, I was the one left in ruins. I pulled over at some gas station on the side of the highway, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. My mind was racing, desperate for answers. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that both my father and my brother had conspired in this sickening betrayal, that they'd both taken something from me, something so deeply personal that it felt like I was being torn apart from the inside out. I grabbed my phone and stared at the screen, my brother's name glaring back at me from the contacts list. I hadn't spoken to him in months, not since Christmas. He'd been so casual then, so friendly. I didn't remember anything unusual, no signs, no clues. But now everything was twisted. Every memory of him felt like a lie. I hit call before I could think it through. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. My heart pounded louder with every ring. Finally, he picked up, his voice casual, like nothing was wrong. "Hey man, long time no talk," he said, his voice light breezy, like he hadn't just turned my entire life into a living hell. I couldn't keep my composure. The words exploded out of me before I could stop them. "You slept with my wife." My voice was a deadly whisper, barely controlled. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Did you think you'd get away with it?" There was a long pause. On the other end, I could hear him breathing, the sound of his shock slowly settling in. He wasn't laughing anymore. What are you talking about?" he stammered, his voice suddenly unsure. "Where is this coming from? Don't play dumb with me, Matt." I snapped, my voice rising. "I know everything. I know about the affair. I know Lily is your daughter. Don't you dare act like you're innocent." The silence that followed felt like a punch to the gut. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. That silence was confirmation enough. Finally, he spoke, his voice strained. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this. Okay? It just happened, Jake. I swear I didn't want to hurt you." My stomach twisted at the pathetic excuse. It just happened? Like they'd tripped and fallen into bed together? Like this was some kind of accident? The rage boiled inside me, rising so fast I could barely keep my grip on the phone. "You didn't want to hurt me?" I growled, my voice shaking. "You destroyed my life, Matt. You ruined everything. And for what? For some fling? For some disgusting affair with your own brother's wife." He was quiet for a long moment, and when he finally spoke again, his voice was filled with guilt. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't think it would go this far. Ron, Dad, he's the one who found out first, and he tried to cover it up. He thought it'd be better if you believed Lily was his. He thought that would protect you." Protect me? The bile rose in my throat. This wasn't about protection. This was about manipulation, control. My father, my brother. They'd both lied to my face for years, covering up the truth, twisting it into something even more monstrous. "You think lying to me was protecting me?" I said, my voice shaking with fury. "You think letting me believe my daughter was my father's was somehow better than the truth? You all thought I was too weak to handle it, didn't you?" "Jake," he started. But I cut him off, the anger flooding my chest. "Don't. Just don't." I snapped. "You're not even sorry. You're just scared you finally got caught. You and Dad both." I could hear his breathing pick up on the other end, like he was struggling to find words. But nothing he said could fix this. Nothing could undo the years of lies, the shattered trust, the way my entire world had been ripped apart by the people I thought I could count on. "Jake, I'm done," I interrupted, my voice cold. "You're dead to me. Both of you. Don't ever contact me again. And if you even think about coming near Lily, I'll make sure you never see the light of day again. I'll bury you legally. You'll lose everything." Silence. Then a whisper. "Jake, please." But I hung up before he could finish. My hand was still trembling as I tossed the phone into the passenger seat. I sat there in the car, staring out the windshield at nothing, the weight of everything pressing down on me like a crushing tide. My own brother, my father, And Julia, the woman I'd given my heart to, my life to, had betrayed me with both of them. How much more was there to uncover? How many more lies had they buried beneath the surface? I sat there for a long time, the anger swirling with a dark, numbing sense of emptiness. I'd lost so much in the span of a few days. Everything I'd thought I knew was a lie. The family I'd worked so hard to build, the trust I'd given freely. It had all been broken, twisted into something unrecognizable. But I wasn't done yet. There was still more to be done, more to be said. They weren't walking away from this without scars. They weren't going to sweep this under the rug and carry on with their lives like nothing had happened. I started the car, the engine rumbling beneath me. There was one more person I needed to confront. One more piece to the puzzle. Julia had lied to me. My father had lied to me. My brother had lied to me. But there was one more person who needed to know the truth. Lily. She was the only one I cared about now. And while she was too young to understand, too innocent to be part of this nightmare, I had to make sure that when she grew up, when she was old enough to know, she would know the real story. The truth. And I would be the one to tell her. I drove back home, my mind racing, but one thing was clear. Lily was the only thing that mattered now. I stepped into her room, and she was standing in her crib, smiling at me. "Dada," she said, reaching out, her innocent eyes shining like she didn't know the world around her had just collapsed. I picked her up, holding her close. Despite everything, the betrayal, the lies, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let her go. She wasn't my brother's child. She wasn't my father's child. She was mine. I'd been there for her every day, and no DNA test could change that. Love wasn't about blood. It was about being there, and I had been there for her since day one. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'm always going to be here, Lily," and I meant it. I put her down for her nap and walked downstairs to face Julia. She was sitting at the kitchen table, eyes swollen from crying. I didn't waste time. "I'm filing for sole custody of Lily. You're leaving. End of story." She tried to speak, but I cut her off. "This is over, Julia. You destroyed everything, and you're not taking Lily with you." Her face crumpled, and I saw the defeat in her eyes. There was no fight left in her. She knew it was done.
Hey there. Life is full of unexpected twists, just like the stories we share here. If this story touched you or made you think, consider subscribing to our channel. Every day, we bring you powerful real-life experiences of betrayal, resilience, and the strength it takes to keep going. Don't miss out. Join our community today, where we value truth, courage, and the lessons life teaches us.
She stood by the bedroom mirror, dabbing concealer under her eyes like she had somewhere to be. At 7:42 in the morning on a Sunday. No makeup on a Sunday was her thing. Had been for 27 years. Now she had mascara, lip gloss, and her pearl earrings. Sunday school Barbie. "Do you know when the pension actually pays out?" she asked casually, not looking at me. Like, the exact month? It was the third time in a week she'd asked. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, trying to get my damn sock on with one hand. Shoulder still sore from the rotator cuff surgery, which, by the way, she told her friends was just a little procedure. I had 3 titanium screws in my shoulder and a physical therapist who grunted like a gorilla every time he moved my arm. "Why?" I asked, watching her in the mirror. She blinked. "Just curious. We should know what our options are. Travel, remodel, downsizing. It all depends on when that money comes in. Right?" "Right?" I said, sliding my foot into the sock, even though the compression was killing me. Strange time to be dreaming of Tuscany, though. I'm still trying to put on pants without crying. She chuckled. That empty, non-committal chuckle women give when they're either lying or deeply bored. In Diane's case, it could be both. She left the room before I could follow up. No kiss, no "how did you sleep?" Just perfume and a quick closing door. The thing is, Diane was always the planner. Spreadsheets, folders, highlighters color-coded by month. But this wasn't planning. This was excavation. Like she was digging for a date to circle on her own private calendar. Something about it didn't sit right. Later that day, she sat across from me in the kitchen while I sipped my second cup of coffee, flipping through the coupons in the Sunday paper like a retiree cliché. She brought up the pension again, this time wrapped in a joke. You know, if you keel over before that payout, I get nothing. I looked at her, deadpan. Want me to write it on a sticky note and leave it on my chest, just in case? She laughed. Too hard. Then got up and refilled her mug. Now here's where it shifted. I caught her glancing at the drawer. The locked one. My drawer. She didn't open it. But it was a look too quick to be accidental. You only glance like that if you already know what's inside. I hadn't told her I'd moved the pension papers from the safe to that drawer. Hell, I barely remembered doing it myself. Those oxycodone nights were a blur. But if she knew, then she'd either gone through the safe or she was trying to see if I'd noticed something was missing. Later that night, while she pretended to read a book by the fire, page 32, same as the last 3 nights, she said it again. No prompting. No context. We just need a solid plan, Paul. No surprises. We've worked too hard for instability now. I nodded, sipping my tea. I'd already started sleeping with one eye open. She thought I was still fogged from the meds. Still passive. Still the man who trusted her completely. And I did. Until Sunday number 4. That's when she accidentally left her calendar open on the counter. It had a red star on the first Monday of October. She'd labeled it, Exit Strategy, Finalized Details. No Tuscany. No remodel. No future. Just strategy. And a plan. Not ours. Hers. It was Donnie from the VFW who told me. Of all people. We were standing outside the bait shop, half watching some teenager struggle to reverse his dad's truck with a boat trailer attached, when Donnie, half distracted, sunburned, beer belly stretching his Vietnam. Been there, done that t-shirt, just drops it like he's commenting on the weather. Saw your lady down at Cranberry Lane Cafe the other day. Again. I blinked. Again. Yeah, 3rd time this month. Always same guy. Kinda wiry fella. Fancy watch. You know the type. I played it cool. Shrugged like it meant nothing. Maybe her old friend from work? Donnie snorted. Friend? She was touching his wrist. Laughing at everything like he was damn George Carlin reincarnated. He paused. Didn't mean anything by it. Just figured you'd be there with her. I smiled. Tight. She only goes there for the chai. He laughed, slapped my shoulder, and went inside to buy worms. I just stood there. Only goes there for the chai. That's exactly what she said when I asked her 2 weeks ago why the cafe kept popping up on her bank statement. $6.95, 3 times. Same drink, same location. You know I only go there for the chai, she'd said, rinsing dishes without turning around. That stuff is crack. I don't even notice how often I stop. I hadn't even asked if she was meeting someone. I didn't need to. Her tone was preemptive. She was answering a question I hadn't asked yet. I went home, booted up the laptop, and pulled up the shared calendar. Nothing logged. Nothing ever was these days, except her weekly therapy and a couple consulting gigs. Consulting for what? She hadn't held a job in years. Not officially. She came home that evening like she was auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. Bright, breezy, kissed me on the cheek, brought in Thai takeout, and even offered to give me a shoulder rub, if it's not too sore still. Who the hell was this woman? Midway through dinner, I leaned back and asked, as casually as a man can while watching his life tilt on its axis. Been by Cranberry Lane lately? She didn't flinch, didn't blink, just sipped her wine. That little place with the chairs that feel like torture devices? Nah, maybe 2 weeks ago? Why? Donnie said he saw you there. She smirked. Donnie also thinks the moon landing was faked. I smiled, forked another bite of rice. Said you were with someone. She cocked her head. Oh, probably Susan. She's got that same short haircut people always confuse for a man's. That was new, and very rehearsed. The kind of rehearsed that's practiced in the car mirror. I let it hang in the air. Didn't argue. Didn't challenge. Just nodded. Could be. She got up, kissed the top of my head, and said, You're so paranoid lately. It's that surgery, I swear. It's messed with your sleep and now you're imagining things. No, Diane. I was imagining you touching another man's wrist over chai tea. And that image was now branded behind my eyelids like a scar. She left the laptop open. It was a small thing, a crack in the armor. She always closed it. Always. Diane was the kind of woman who wiped fingerprints off her screen like a forensic tech. But that night, after her second glass of Merlot and some movie she pretended to enjoy, she said she was tired, kissed my cheek, and padded off to bed barefoot. Left her laptop glowing softly on the couch. I wasn't snooping. Not at first. I just reached to close the lid. That's when I saw it. A folder on her desktop. No disguise. No cutesy taxes 2020 mislabel. Just bold, black letters. Exit plan. My stomach dropped like a stone in a well. The cursor blinked in silence. The screen timed out 5 seconds later. Locked. I just stood there, hand hovering, pulse ticking in my ears. I didn't touch it. Didn't try her password, though I could guess it was still her maiden name with the I swapped for an exclamation mark. She always thought that made it uncrackable. Instead, I just sat down slowly, turned off the TV, let the dark room surround me while that phrase looped in my head like a song from hell. Exit plan. The next morning, I didn't ask. She acted like everything was fine. Made scrambled eggs. Wore my old flannel shirt like we were in a Norman Rockwell painting. But her phone never left her hand. Even while sipping coffee. Even when she kissed me goodbye with that glazed smile. She had a plan. But she didn't know I was about to make one too. Later that afternoon, I went to Best Buy. Walked in like a man buying a damn grenade. Picked up a router with traffic logging. Nothing fancy. Just enough. Dual band, password protected with full admin access mine. Installed it while she was at yoga. She didn't do yoga. I labeled the network something forgettable. Linksys_1043. And set the logs to archive locally every 48 hours. Browser history. Device names. IPs. VPN attempts. She never asked why the Wi-Fi name changed. Not once. 2 nights later, I sat in my office, staring at the first set of logs. Her MacBook pinged 5 different servers in the span of an hour. One was a document sharing app. The others? Legal directories, divorce forums, private browsing tabs. She was careful, just not careful enough. She was Googling phrases like, can husband block pension access? How to prove emotional instability spouse? And, my personal favorite, is therapist testimony admissible in court? I didn't feel hurt. Not anymore. That part was behind me. This was chess now. She thought I was the sick old husband in recovery, limping around the house in orthopedic slippers. But I was awake, and I was logging everything. The call came while I was slicing a banana for my oatmeal. I almost didn't answer. It was a number with no name, just area code 312, which usually means robocall or scam or some bored telemarketer trying to sell me roof shingles. But something told me to pick up. Paul Whitaker? A woman's voice snapped before I could even say hello. Yes. This is Carla Wexler, legal counsel for Diane Whitaker. I'm calling regarding the divorce proceedings. The knife froze mid-slice. The banana rolled off the counter and hit the floor with a wet thud. Divorce proceedings? I said slowly, as if repeating it would make it make sense. Yes, your wife filed 2 weeks ago. You should be receiving the formal petition today or tomorrow by courier. I assumed she informed you. She didn't. A beat. Then the tone shifted only slightly from smug to businesslike. Well, in that case, allow me to outline the preliminary settlement demands so you're not caught off guard. She said that like she was reading me a parking ticket. No emotion. No pause. We will be requesting full ownership of the primary residence at 1234 Hanover Drive, including all fixtures and contents, both vehicles currently registered under the Whitaker name, and 50% of your pension, retroactive to your first employment year with Johnson Metals. I didn't speak. I just stared at the banana on the floor like it was a body. She continued like a freight train of smug. Additionally, Mrs. Whitaker is requesting emotional reparations for undue stress and medical costs incurred during your recovery period. I strongly advise you to retain counsel immediately to expedite negotiations. I finally found my voice. Quiet. Even. Is this the part where I thank you for the courtesy call? She didn't laugh. We'll be filing for expedited resolution. It's in everyone's best interest to move quickly. I ended the call. Politely. Didn't say a word to Diane when she came back from her walk, wearing lipstick and not a drop of sweat. She smiled, asked if I'd eaten, said she might bake something later. She was good. I'll give her that. Still played the role. Still rinsed her coffee mug like nothing had changed. But I looked at her hands differently now. Not as gentle. Not as familiar. Just capable. Capable of paperwork. Capable of planning. Capable of smiling to my face while sending a legal assassin after everything I'd built. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't a surprise attack. This wasn't impulsive. This was the endgame of something long in motion. 2 weeks ago, she filed. 3 weeks ago, she started therapy. 5 weeks ago, she started asking about the pension. I'd been playing checkers. She'd been playing executioner. I picked up the banana, tossed it in the trash. Then I opened my laptop, logged into the router, and started tracking her phone in real time. I didn't know yet what she was hiding, but I knew where she was going. And this time I'd be waiting. That night she made meatloaf. Not microwave lasagna. Not DoorDash pad thai. Homemade meatloaf, with the ketchup glaze and the little sprigs of thyme she always said were just for color. Like we were filming a cooking show for ghosts. She even set the table, cloth napkins, salad forks, wine in stem glasses. Candle. Freaking candle. I thought we could have a nice dinner, she said with a smile, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear like she was nervous. Nervous, like a woman on a first date, not a wife who just sicked a lawyer on me like a pit bull in heels. Sure, I said, folding my napkin. What's the occasion? She shrugged. I don't need a reason to cook for my husband. Your husband. That phrase sat on the plate next to my mashed potatoes like it was rotting. I watched her as she sliced the meatloaf with slow, careful movements, like a nurse prepping an injection. Her face didn't twitch. Her posture was perfect. She kept the small talk coming like we were hosting a dinner party for the ghosts of our marriage. Oh, the neighbor's dog got loose again. Carol from yoga invited me to a sound bath thing next week. Do you think we should repaint the guest bathroom? Like hell, I'm gonna help you repaint a bathroom you're legally trying to take from me. I nodded, smiled, took small bites, watched her pour more wine. She didn't ask if I wanted more. She just assumed. That part still worked. She knew the rhythm of my hand-to-glass habit. She knew when I'd finished a sip. She knew how to look like my wife. But I wasn't looking at Diane anymore. I was looking at a shapeshifter in Diane's skin. And the more I watched, the more the mask slipped in little ways. A too long glance at her phone screen. The slight tension in her shoulders when I mentioned retirement. How she reached for her wine with her left hand even though she's right-handed. Because the bruise on her palm hadn't faded yet. And she didn't want me to see it. She was careful now. Calculated. Every smile, every nod, every "you okay, honey?" was an act. But it was why she was acting that nod at me. Why pretend? Why not scream, fight, accuse? Why not say what she was really doing? Because she thought I didn't know. Because she thought her lawyer got to me first. That I'd be dazed, scrambling, heartbroken, confused. Because she needed me to stay still long enough for the knife to go in without resistance. And that told me everything I needed. She was still playing nice because she thought she was winning. That's when the disgust drained out of me like bathwater. I wasn't angry anymore. I was interested. I cleaned my plate, said thanks, washed the dishes while she scrolled through her phone behind me. I could feel her eyes checking me like I was a bomb she needed to keep disarmed just one more week. And I gave her what she wanted. I smiled. I asked if she wanted tea. I even kissed her forehead. But in my mind, I'd already left the kitchen. I was standing in a courtroom, with exhibits, names, screenshots, audio, dates. And when the curtain dropped, she wouldn't be looking at a husband. She'd be looking at her reckoning. Paul, I think we should talk to someone, she said, pushing her eggs around on the plate like a child avoiding vegetables. Just for closure. Closure. Not healing. Not understanding. Not working through it. Closure. A neat little word people use when they've already packed the parachute and cut the cords on yours. I stared at her over my coffee mug. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She just dabbed the corner of her mouth with a napkin and said, "It might help you process things. You know? You've been so tense lately." Could have laughed. I could have thrown the fork across the table and said, "Maybe that's because your lawyer called me before you did." But I didn't. I played dumb. My new specialty. "Sure," I said. "Let's talk." She lit up. "I already found someone. Her name's Lydia. She's wonderful. Completely neutral." Neutral, my ass. Our first session was over Zoom. Lydia had a background that looked like a Pinterest board threw up. Candles, succulents, a framed quote that said, "Feel, heal, repeat." She smiled like she was auditioning to be the next cult leader on Netflix. "Hi, Paul," she said. "Diane's told me so much about you." I bet she has. The session started slow. Lydia asked about my emotional tendencies, how I processed disappointment, whether I had anger issues growing up. At one point she asked if I ever felt lost in retirement. Not once did she ask Diane about her behavior. Not once did she say, "Diane, how have you been showing up in the marriage?" Nope. It was all me. My moods, my habits, my unhealed inner child, apparently. I played the game. Soft voice, polite nods, careful pauses. I gave them exactly the version of Paul she wanted. The emotionally repressed, vaguely bitter old man who just didn't communicate. At the end of the session, Diane smiled and said, "This feels good, right? We're making progress. Oh, we're progressing all right." After the third session, I got curious. Something about Lydia's cadence didn't feel clinical, it felt coached. So I did what any man in my situation would do. I ran her name through a few people I still knew in city records. A quick phone call here, a favor there. Took less than 24 hours. Lydia is not just a therapist. She's a licensed counselor with prior employment at the same firm Diane's lawyer came from. They shared a client 3 years ago. A messy prenup case. So much for neutrality. I printed the LinkedIn connection history, took screenshots of archived bios, found a picture of them at a women-in-law charity event, arms around each other, smiling like old college friends. I didn't bring it up. Not to Diane. Not to Lydia. I scheduled the next session, showed up on time, smiled, answered her questions like a man cracking open his soul. "You said you feel unseen, Paul. Can you expand on that?" "Sure," I said. "Sometimes I think people assume I don't know what's happening right in front of me." She smiled. So did I. I was already drafting my own notes. I had recordings. I had timestamps. She wanted a case. She just gave me one. It was the resume that did it. Crinkled, coffee-stained, and buried under a pile of shredded credit card offers in the kitchen trash. I wasn't looking for it. I was actually digging for the damn cap to the peanut butter jar she keeps accidentally throwing away when she cleans. But then I saw it. That familiar ivory linen paper she used for everything professional. Her name at the top. Except it wasn't Diane Whitaker. It was Diane Moore. Her maiden name. Bold. 12-point font. Professional summary. Experienced small business consultant with a focus on boutique wellness brands. I read the whole thing twice before folding it gently and sliding it into the inside pocket of my flannel. She had a phone number listed I didn't recognize. A Gmail address I'd never seen. A LinkedIn profile URL. Even a watermark logo at the bottom. Luna Wellness Consulting. Consulting. That was the word she kept using. So I started digging. I found the LLC online. Registered 3 years ago under Diane Moore. Mailing address was a P.O. box in the next county over. Website was clean, professional, soft pastel colors. Testimonials from women named things like Jules M. and Trina S. Talking about how Diane helped them monetize their feminine energy. She had a full schedule of online workshops. She had clients. She had income. She had a damn Shopify store. And in court, she had the gall to file for spousal support on the grounds of complete financial dependence. I didn't rage, didn't scream, didn't confront. I called someone. Marty. Private investigator. Former state trooper. No nonsense. Cheap when he owes you a favor, which he does, thanks to a hunting trip and a DUI I helped squash 15 years ago. I told him I needed everything. Real names of clients. Payment receipts. Bank transfers. Video if possible. He chuckled. "You want the truth or the legal truth?" "I want the kind that makes her lawyer piss his $800 suit." 2 weeks later, Marty sent me the first folder. Screen recordings of Diane hosting Zoom calls under the name Coach D. A PayPal transaction log, over $14,000 in the last fiscal quarter. A business account under Luna Wellness, tied to the same Gmail address on that crumpled resume. And the kicker? An Instagram post from 6 months ago, geotagged at a wellness retreat in Sedona. Caption, "So proud of this empire I've built. #LunaLife, #female founder." She told me that weekend she was visiting her sister in Kansas. I stared at the screenshot for a long time, not out of heartbreak. That ship had already burned, sunk, and been eaten by sharks. No, this was fuel. She wanted to fake dependence. She wanted sympathy, alimony. A judge who'd see her as the delicate wife of a cold old man? Let her. I was going to walk into that courtroom with a smile and enough paper to choke her entire narrative. The betrayal didn't break me. It activated me. She thought she was the only one with a plan. But she forgot. I'd spent 30 years learning how to build things slow, steady, and with one goal in mind: permanence. Now it was my turn to build. And I was building her downfall. She was already in the car when she realized it. I watched her through the blinds. Engine running, sunglasses on, lipstick fresh. When she threw the gear into park like she'd been shot and sprinted back to the house. I met her at the door. "My purse," she said, breathless, trying to squeeze past me. I held it up. "This one." Relief flooded her face too fast, like someone who just found a ticking bomb. "God, yes. Thank you." She took it, kissed my cheek like we were still in 1994, and rushed off with a "Don't wait up." That sounded like it belonged to a teenager sneaking out the back window. As soon as her car turned the corner, I turned on the kettle, because I was going to need a calm hand, and set her purse on the dining table. I hadn't gone through it before, not because I trusted her, but because I didn't need to. Up until now, everything she hid was digital. But that purse? That was urgent. I started slow. Sunglasses, tissues, Altoids, wallet, containing her other credit card I'd already found via bank logs. A folded paper with a real estate agent's business card paperclip to it. And then, tucked into a side zipper pocket behind a half-used pack of gum, I found it. A silver USB drive. No label. Just smooth, blank metal and a faint thumbprint. I held it like it was evidence at a crime scene. Carried it to my office, shut the door, and slid it into the side port like I was lighting a fuse. It was full. Folders labeled 2022_TX returns_DM, Scottsdale_property, personal_accounts, alimony_calc. The air went still. My hands didn't shake. Not even a twitch. Inside personal_accounts was a spreadsheet that detailed 6 bank accounts. All in her maiden name. Some offshore. One in Nevada, under a corporate LLC that didn't have her name anywhere on the official documentation. But I knew the handwriting. She'd scanned checks, uploaded notes, made comments in the margins like this was her personal retirement plan. Then I opened Scottsdale_property. Photos of a 2-bedroom condo. New floors, quartz countertops, balcony view. Closed caption on one picture said, "Final walkthrough next week. HOA fees confirmed." I recognized the closing date. It was the same weekend she told me she was at a women's resilience workshop. But the folder that really stopped me was alimony_calc. It was a mock-up, not for court, for her. A spreadsheet of projected payouts, estimates of what she could get from me versus what she'd need to survive on her own if I ever found out about Luna Wellness. One tab was titled Worst Case, Full Exposure. She'd even written, "If he discovers everything, fall back on emotional angle, frame his behavior post-surgery, consult with Carla." She wasn't just leaving me. She was erasing me. Financially, legally, socially. I sat there, letting the tea go cold, watching her neat columns and pastel-colored pie charts dance on the screen like a PowerPoint built in hell. I copied everything, encrypted it, backed it up to 3 locations. One local, one cloud, and one printed list of file paths in a safety deposit box she didn't know existed. By the time she came home, smiling, tossing her purse on the couch like it was just another Tuesday, I was already 5 steps ahead. She offered to make dinner. I said I wasn't hungry. She asked if I was okay. I said I was just thinking about our future. She nodded, completely unaware I'd already seen hers. She thought this was a clean exit, but I was already scrubbing her name off the escape hatch. The garage always smelled like dust and motor oil. That was mine. My space. My dumb little haven of half-finished projects and tools I hadn't used in years. Diane never went in there. Said it gave her Boy Scout asthma. Whatever the hell that meant. So when I noticed the side door was being opened more than usual, the autolock had logged entries I hadn't made. I stopped chalking it up to, maybe I forgot to close it. I went to the hardware store that afternoon. Told the kid behind the counter I wanted a motion-triggered cam. No Wi-Fi, no cloud sync. Local storage only. Discreet. Something you could tuck behind a rafter or hang above the workbench like a smoke detector. He sold me one with night vision. Said it was meant for hunters. I just nodded. 3 days after I mounted it, I got the footage. It was 11:42 a.m. Tuesday. Diane told me she was running to the co-op for local honey. The cam caught her walking into the garage 15 minutes after I left for PT. Alone at first. Then, 2 minutes later, a man entered through the side door. Mid-40s, khakis, pressed shirt. I'd never seen him before, but I knew his kind. Professional handshake. Paper breath. Nervous smile. She handed him a manila envelope. Thick, tied with a string. He flipped through the papers like he was confirming inventory. She pointed at something. He nodded. Then they both leaned over the hood of my old Jeep. I zoomed in on the frame-by-frame playback. Took screenshots. Enhanced what I could. There, on the corner of the document, was my signature. Except it wasn't my signature. Not even close. Too clean. Too straight. The T was crossed too high. The P was curled like a calligrapher got drunk. It was a forgery. On legal documents. Ones I hadn't seen, let alone signed. She laughed at something he said. He folded the documents, tucked them back into the envelope, and walked out the side door like it was the goddamn post office. She stood there a moment, adjusted her blouse, looked around, then walked back inside like she hadn't just committed fraud in broad daylight. I sat there in front of the footage for a long time. This wasn't betrayal anymore. This was criminal. She wasn't just trying to take what was mine. She was willing to fabricate, falsify, manipulate her way through a courtroom just to watch me lose everything I'd built. And now I had proof. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even move. I backed up the footage, labeled it garage_envelope_11_42 and placed the USB in the same metal box as the rest of her greatest hits. Her lawyer didn't know about it. Yet, the court sure as hell didn't. But they would. In the right moment. In my moment. I was no longer interested in winning. I wanted a controlled collapse. Where she stood at the center and watched her case turn to ash while smiling for a flame she'd lit herself. I wasn't just playing defense anymore. Now I was hunting. She walked into that conference room like she was arriving at a charity gala. Cream blazer, pearl earrings, hair curled to frame her face like a politician's wife during an apology speech. I nearly laughed out loud. Her lawyer, Carla, the sharp-jawed jackal in a pinstripe suit, stood beside her like a valet who smelled blood in the upholstery. She gave me a brief nod. Nothing more. The mediator was some court-appointed limp handshake with a neutral smile, and a file full of meaningless phrases like amicable dissolution and reasonable distribution of assets. I ignored him. Diane smiled at me, tight, controlled, the kind of smile you wear when you've already rehearsed the speech and know the ending. I smiled back. She didn't know she was the opening act. "We'd like to begin with our proposed division of assets," Carla said, clicking open her binder like she was about to deliver a TED Talk. Given Mrs. Whitaker's long-standing role as a homemaker and emotional support partner throughout Mr. Whitaker's recovery and career, we believe the following is fair and justified. She slid a packet across the table. I didn't touch it. Carla went on, voice clear, confident, pre-caffeinated. The house and all contents therein. Both vehicles. 50% of my pension, backdated to the earliest eligible year. And brace for this, emotional reparations for the undue psychological burden of Paul's recovery period, including costs for therapy and future emotional damages. Damages, I said, raising an eyebrow. Like I'm asbestos. Carla didn't blink. It's standard language for modern filings. Diane said nothing. She just sat there with her chin lifted like she was watching a performance from the front row. I waited. Let the silence sit. Let them think I was stunned. Then I reached into my briefcase. No shaking hands. No tremble. Just clean, mechanical movement like a man placing a scalpel on a tray before surgery. I slid a folder across the table. Thick. Labeled Exhibits AF. Carla blinked. What's this? She asked, already reaching for it. Documents, I said. Figured we'd balance out the theater. Diane's smile twitched. Just a hairline crack in the mask. Carla opened the folder and the room went quiet. Inside, bank statements from her Luna Wellness accounts under Diane Moore. A timeline of deposits, complete with screenshots and verified transactions. The Nevada LLC. The social media post bragging about her empire. 3 pages of invoices from her Shopify store. And the piece de resistance. A notarized report from Marty, the private investigator, including surveillance stills from her sister trip to Sedona and the garage footage, frame by frame, of Diane handing over forged documents. Carla's lips parted just slightly. She looked up, blinking. Diane leaned in, face draining in real time. What is this? You said I was paranoid, I replied calmly. Turns out paranoia makes great filing cabinets. The mediator cleared his throat, trying to regain oxygen in a room that no longer belonged to him. I think we may need to take a brief recess. No, Diane said sharply. She was losing it. Her voice wobbled. This is completely out of context. Oh, good, I said, because context is on page 32. You'll love it. That's where the forgery starts. Carla looked at her, and for the first time all morning, her face shifted. That polished calm cracked just a little, just enough. Diane, she said quietly, we need to talk outside. Now. Diane didn't move. Her eyes were on the folder. Still unopened at the bottom of the stack was one last envelope, marked in red. For Diane. I didn't mention it. Not yet. That would come in the next act. Before you say another word, I said, sliding the second folder across the table, you might want to read this first. Carla hesitated, just for a second. Then she reached for it like it might bite her. Diane didn't move. I sat back, folded my hands, watched. They opened it together. The first page was a simple index. 1. Bank Activity Summary Luna Wellness / Diane Moore. 2. Tax Records Years 2021 to 2023. 3. Nevada LLC Registration plus Operating Agreement. 4. Instagram plus Social Media Footprint, Screenshots. 5. Surveillance Log Dates, Times, Footage. 6. Forged Signature Documentation. 7. Notarized Affidavit. The Friend. Carla started flipping through with growing speed. Her lips tightened. Her nostrils flared. Page after page, her posture wilted. The high-sitting, predatory confidence sank, inch by inch, like she'd just been handed a medical report with the word malignant stamped across the top. Diane finally leaned forward. What is this? She didn't ask me. She asked Carla. Like I wasn't even in the room anymore. Like the man she tried to gut financially had become a shadow. A ghost. A legal inconvenience with receipts. Carla didn't answer. She stopped on page 37. Read it. Reread it. Then slowly slid it toward Diane, who scanned the document and blinked like she'd been smacked in the back of the head. It was the affidavit. Signed. Stamped. Dated. A 3-page statement from an old friend of Diane's. Not someone close anymore. They hadn't talked in months. Maybe years. But loyalty dies fast when there's money involved. And I'd made sure to find someone she'd once trusted just enough to tell the truth. And the truth was ugly. She told this friend everything. Over wine and spite. That she was building a case. That the therapy was a setup. That her lawyer had already sketched out the emotional abuse narrative. That I was weak now, easy to push through the system. That this would all be clean. Easy. One blow and he'll fold. Diane's hands trembled. She tried to speak, but Carla beat her to it. We need a recess, Carla said, standing abruptly. No, I said. We're not done. Her eyes snapped back. Mr. Whitaker, sit down, I said, calm as a priest at a funeral, because that was the second to last folder. Diane's face went pale. She looked at me, really looked, maybe for the first time in months, and I smiled. Not cruel, not vengeful, just calm. The smile of a man who saw the blade coming and let it pass, so he could follow the wrist back to the throat. There was one envelope left, thin, sealed, handwritten, and it had her name on it. I slid it across the table. Read this last, I said. That one's just for you. She reached out, hesitant now, like she was touching something radioactive. The room went silent. Her fingers hovered, then pinched the flap, but I didn't watch her open it. I'd already seen the look on her face. It was the look of someone who thought the fall had ended, only to realize they just passed the first floor on their way down. And I hadn't even pushed yet. I waited until Carla stopped talking. She was rambling now, some desperate blend of context and misunderstanding and amicable resolutions, like she could vacuum up the mess they'd spilled all over the table. I reached into my coat pocket. Not the briefcase, not the folder, just the inside breast pocket where you keep the things that don't go on record. I pulled out a plain white envelope. No return address, no markings, just her name, written in ink the color of dried blood. Diane, I said, my voice soft, almost gentle. This one's just for you. I didn't slide it this time. I handed it directly to her, palms almost touching. She flinched. She stared at it for 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then she opened it. No one else moved. Not Carla. Not the mediator. Not me. She pulled out a single sheet of paper. One side only. Typed. Her eyes scanned the top line, and I watched something inside her unspool. The way a rope looks right before it snaps. Halfway down the page, her lips parted. By the bottom, her hands were trembling. She blinked, hard, like maybe the words would change if her vision cleared. They didn't. Her mouth opened, closed, no sound. Carla leaned in. Diane? She asked low. Diane didn't answer. She just looked at me. Not angry, not smug, not scared, just exposed. Like a magician staring at a severed rabbit and realizing the hat was never magic. It was just a lie in better lighting. I held her gaze for a moment, then stood. Carla cleared her throat, suddenly unsure of her voice. We're prepared to renegotiate everything. I didn't respond, didn't nod, didn't gloat. I just buttoned my coat and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Diane start to cry. Not a whimper, not a theatrical sob. The kind of sound that happens when your own narrative cracks in your hands and you realize you're not the victim, you're the author. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. The story had ended. And the last page, that was mine.